We can't see you, Carolyn, but that's all good.
You don't need to say that. It should be a joy.
If you want, I'm just.
Okay, so the meeting is live streaming now. So Carolyn, it's ready to kick off whenever you'd like.
Okay, Kia. Is Kia?
Oh, you're muted, Kia.
That was a lovely smile, Amy.
Good to get that out of the way at the start of the meeting. Kia ora tātou. Kia tau te Māori o runga, kia tau te Māori o raro. Paiheretia te ture wairua, paiheretia te ture tangata. He pō arahi I a tātou I tēnei wā. Kia tika te whakaro, kia tika te kupu. Tihe Māori ora.
Maori ora.
That was excellent. Kia ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora tātou, no mai, haere mai. Do we have anybody else in the Zoom, Amy?
There is somebody, but they haven't displayed their full name, so I'm assuming it's one of the two public forum presenters.
Okay, just welcome to everybody, in other words. We're being live streamed and the recording will be kept online for future viewing, so you're not allowed to drop anybody in it like I'm inclined to do. Welcome to any members of the public watching the live stream. Welcome to the public forum presenter, Alan McDonald, if it's you that's out there, Alan. Port Hills Park Trust, I can't tell you how welcome you are.
Thank you.
And welcome to board members and staff. And please remain muted when you're not speaking. And can the board members introduce themselves, starting with Callum?
Kia ora, my name's Callum Ward. I am a board member from the Spreydon ward.
Mel?
Kia ora, Melanie Coker, councillor for Spreydon.
Kia?
Good evening, Ciara Leslie, community board member elected from Cashmere.
Tim?
Good evening, I'm Tim Scandred, I'm the councillor for Cashmere.
Lee?
I was thinking there must be one left. Lee Sampson, Lee Sampson, the deputy chair, and I'm based in Cashmere.
Well, you would say what you said to me. Serves you right. And staff, starting with Joe?
Kia ora, Joe Wells, Community Governance Manager.
And Amy, if you could introduce the others, name the others that are there.
Yep, I'm Amy Hart, Community Board Advisor. We also have Heather Davis, Community Development Advisor, Jay Seepy, Community Development Advisor, and I believe Watane Hema is also on the call, Community Recreation Advisor.
Hello, you three. Could you introduce yourselves?
Kia ora koutou, JCP.
What's her name? Heather? What's her name?
It doesn't look like Watane's here right at the minute, as far as I can see.
Heather? No?
I think Heather's just muted at the moment, but she is here, and Watane has just joined back in as well.
Watane, would you like to say kia ora?
Kia ora koutou, araha mai, just sort of jump back in and back out, but ko Watani tōku ingoa no Tuazala hau. Kia ora, my name's Watani, Community Recreation Advisor for Spreydon-Cashmere. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Is Heather there? Okay. Carolyn Potter, Board Chair and Member for Spreydon. Thank you, everybody. Apologies? Any apologies for the meeting? No. Declarations of interest? No. Confirmation of previous minutes. If the board could note, we've got two amendments which are in the meeting run sheet and the agenda, which Amy has noticed. And we've got two other amendments which I have recommended to be in addition to the minutes. Amy, would you mind reading those two amendments out?
Yep. So the first one, just making sure I'm unmuted. Yep. So The first one is on item 4.2 about Summerfield Park. The minutes incorrectly said that the resident was talking about a public toilet at Cashmere View Park, but she was actually referring to a public toilet at Cashmere Valley Reserve. So it's just correcting that. And then in item 7, the report about the Cashmere Tennis Club, there was some discussion around that triangle of land and wanting to make sure that that was still open to the community. And there was a bit of confusion at the meeting, I think. So that triangle of land is actually outside the leased area for the most part. So it's just the volley wall itself and a very small area around that volley wall that's inside the leased area of the club. And the rest of that triangle of land is public land and so open to the public. So the minutes should be amended to reflect that as well.
And could you note the 2 amendments I've sent to you too?
Yep. So then Carolyn asked if for the tennis club item as well, if this statement could be included, that a board member suggested that the tennis club consider a scholarship or program that allowed young players who could not afford membership to be supported to receive some training and play at the club. So that was a comment that was made at the meeting that was not included in the minutes. And then the second one, if I can just pull that one up. So Carolyn, you'll have to remind me which item this was referring to, but you'd also asked if the minutes could include that a board member said that there is a principle that is important in local body issues that the ratepayer does not pay for that which is the taxpayer's responsibility. And that was
when Dingle
yeah.
Foundation.
Ah, yeah, okay, that's right.
I mentioned it at the Dingle Foundation. I think it's an important issue that if anybody's reading the minutes, it might be something worth noting. The problem with the minutes, everybody, is that they have to be much more detailed than they would normally be because of the situation that is occurring under COVID. And so apparently the governance team citywide are looking at this issue and just seeing if they can make it shorter and briefer, more like they used to be, or more concise maybe, so that we hope that the minutes in the future might not be quite so laborious for the people who are doing the recording, like Amy and co. With those amendments, has anybody got an objection to any particular amendment? Could I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes inclusive of those changes, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to move, Carolyn, if I can.
Thank you, Lee.
And I'll second, I'm happy.
Who was that? Tim?
Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to the public forum. Alan, are you there?
Good evening, Carolyn. Yes.
That's amazing, Alan. You weren't silent for at least 2 minutes and say, can you unmute? Well done.
Well, technology is only partially my friend tonight. I can't get the camera to work, so you've got half of me here.
I can't see anybody and I can't see myself, which is a good thing. Alan, we're very glad that the Port Hills Park Trust has been restored to a connection with us. And we look forward from now on to hearing reports about your progress, what's happening, and what it has been happening at the Port Hills Trust Board. And it was a glitch that meant that we had no representation for about 3 years because we found out that the representation that we did have was under a different compliance thing than, and Amy looked into it and found out how it was meant to work. And the mayor had to nominate someone to be her representative on the board. So we've got that sorted now. Lee is the lucky person to be have our relationship with you, and here you are to give us a real catch up. And thank you very much for coming. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, board members, just for the time to come and speak on behalf of the Port Hills Park Trust. So maybe what I'll do firstly is just check that everyone can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So for those of you who don't know who we are, the Port Hills Park Trust was established in the late 1980s to administer Mount Vernon Park as a recreational reserve, but also to conserve and enhance the natural environment and to provide a good opportunity for public recreation in the Port Hills. The park itself was purchased by the Civic Trust and then vested with the Port Hills Park Trust Board after a community campaign during that time to try and stop urban sprawl kind of spreading up Mount Vernon and also across Bowen Vale. So I'm here on behalf of the Trust. I'm the chair of the management committee, and some of you have been on the board in the past, and some of you, like Lee, will be helping out in the future. So thank you very much, Lee. So the Trust itself is made up of local members of the community and appointed members, like Lee. We also have people appointed, say, from the likes of Lincoln University as well. We are a registered charitable trust. And again, just where are we? We're probably around 250 hectares. So we're bounded by Huntsbury Hill and Bowen Vale Reserve on the west, the Summit Road Society Linda Woods Reserve and City Council Montgomery Spur on the east. And to the south, we're bounded by both City Council land and Rapaki Trust land. As some of you may know, we've got a number of walking and mountain bike tracks, including Rapaki Track. We've got the Valley Track, the Farm Track, and the Gorge Track. And also the Albert Terrace climbing crag is probably one of the more popular climbing tracks, which is quite close to the city. And just to put it into perspective, Rapaki Track is co-managed by the City Council and by the Trust. And that track itself has around 250,000 people per year. And as I said, we administer the reserve for people to enjoy. We have quite a lot of outdoor activities that occur there, ranging from Rogaine events to orienteering to other multi-sport events. Up to the 1980s, it was managed as a sheep run. So from a biodiversity perspective, there was very little native vegetation that was there. But over the last few years, we've managed to source funding from the regional council and also the city council to remove plant pests, to control animal pests, and to do targeted restorations in areas. Our vision is to connect the valley floor up to the Summit Road, and then to kind of provide a kind of a hills to the sea to the city kind of catchment event. As mentioned, we have some pretty popular tracks, and some of those tracks are accessed from car parks. So the car park in question, which is the agenda item today, is our car park on Hillsborough Terrace. From that car park, you can access, I suppose, the Valley Track is the main track, but you can also access Rapaki. You can also access the Valley Track through a network of cross tracks we have. The car park itself, though administered by the City Council, that car park is technically, if we were planners, it's actually on a paper road, which is City Council. So though we've got a gate and we lock it to kind of prevent unsavory activities in the evening. But we have put some nice amenity plantings around the car park, and it has been well maintained. I suppose more recently, and probably within the last 6 months, we seem to be subject to, again, maybe some unsavory activity might be the polite way of putting it. It is a targeted campaign of break-ins to cars that are parked in the car park. There doesn't seem to be any kind of pressure points on time of day, and it also does seem to be a multiple of offenders that are committing these activities. And to put it in perspective, we can sometimes have 9 cars broken into in an afternoon.
Wow.
And then this is a daily occurrence. So for a trust, firstly, this isn't an activity that we would like to see. If you could imagine parking your car and going for potentially even a 3-hour hike and coming back and then finding your car broken into and potentially maybe some valuables taken, it's not, something that anyone wants to experience. But I suppose, aside from the people who are using the trust car park, it's affecting the wider community as well. And so this is something of concern, most definitely, and the trust is taking it seriously. So what have we done? So firstly, we've kind of reflected on the condition of the car park. So we've pruned back vegetation around the car park to improve line of sight and to kind of discourage kind of people hanging out in the car park. We've painted a lot of the signs in the car park, and we've also worked in with the local community patrol to increase their visitation. However, that is only on a Monday. We did get some signs from the community patrol, which we placed at the entrance, and we will place more in the car park. I've contacted the police. So firstly, through the 0800 number, was referred to the community police, firstly in Littleton, and then secondly, I went to Christchurch South. I completely appreciate their response, which is that they have limited capacity at the moment because they are dealing with MIQ and COVID-related pressures. And so their response was that they have no additional capacity for extra patrols, which is, on one hand, understandable given the current situation we're in, but also quite disappointing that, you know, we're talking about a large volume of break-ins. And again, to put it in perspective, it's not just our car park, it's also cars on Rapaki Road, it's cars in Victoria Car Park, and also Holswell Quarry. So it seems to be a targeted campaign in car parks where people are parking and then going for walks. You know, we have put signs up in the car park asking people not to place any valuables in visibility, you know, to act as an attractant. But I think from talking to some of the local residents, I suppose the mode of how they are operating is that they are, well, what we can understand to date is that they are driving in, parking adjacent to a car, rolling down the window, smashing the window of the car next to them, and doing a smash and grab. We have taken numbers of cars that did these offences, but when they were reported to the police, they were stolen. There's a new house going on, being built overlooking the car park. That house, the builders and all the subcontractors who are building the house, all the subcontractors have had their vans broken into as well. So, you know, that kind of puts it in perspective. We also have the grass mowed by contractors in that car park. Those contractors now refuse to park their truck and trailer in the car park. They plant it out in the street, drive their ride-on mowers into the car park. So I guess what we have is something that used to be an asset, which is now a liability. And again, you know, we've done signage, we've improved visibility, we've showed that we're loving the area. But I suppose the risk now is that the local community's tolerance or awareness is getting such that I would hate for a kind of a vigilante type, you know, group to try and stake out and try and find one of these offenders. Any advice we have had from the police has said that there is value in a CCTV being established to try and track movements and again catch registration plates. We do have a regular volunteer group from the trust that meets every Thursday, and on that volunteer group is actually an ex-policeman. And when I talked to him, his comment was, well, you can get a range of cameras, but unless the quality is of sufficient quality, actually all you're going to get is a blurred image. So if a camera is an effective deterrent, but also a tool, it needs to be something of standard that actually will be of use to the police, but also something that, you know, I guess won't be vandalized itself. So it's finding that kind of happy medium. As I said, we are I suppose a charitable trust. Our main income we receive is from two sources. Firstly, we are one of the community groups that applies to the City Council each year and gets a small community grant. And our second main source of income is from actually the sheep that we have grazing the land. So we work in with the City Council. We've got a really good relationship with the rangers up in Victoria Park. And so we lease our block of land, which again is around 230, 240 hectares of land, in with the City Council. So that way we can turn off and on blocks of land depending on what way the grass is looking at that time of the year. So I guess where I'm going is that as a trust, though we have a small financial income, it is pretty limited. And so to establish a CCTV camera, if that was actually the most effective tool, you know, that would actually be quite a resource for the trust to try and find. And again, you know, understanding what is effective it would probably need to be something that's solar powered because there is no power at site. And then, of course, would also have to be something maybe on a tower that somebody can't throw a rock at as well. The police, just in closing, I suppose, said that these are pressure sensitive issues, and, to ride it out. And at some stage, these people will move on and target somewhere else. I'm just mindful of the effect that it's having on the wider community. And, just as the chair of the management committee, it's not that we have to show that we're doing something. We actually want to do something, and we're open to kind of suggestions on what the next steps are. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just pause there if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an absolute eye-opener. I was initially going to ask you for the names of the members of the committee these days, and just so that we could start to familiarise ourselves and the kinds of small projects that you're onto at the moment. But I'm not going to do that because you've raised a very important issue that's worrying you. I'm not sure that we can provide much in the way of advice, but I'm going to ask the board to ask questions of you and ask the board to enter into the conversation with you right now. That was very serious. Thank you, Alan. Can I have any board members who would like to further this discussion?
Actually, thank you very much, Alan. But I guess the question is to the board, really. With the pressure from the police and the pressure they're under, because this isn't just a Cashmere or Huntsbury or Hawesville issue, it's actually citywide. And
Tim, could you introduce yourself when you ask
Tim Scandrett, Councillor for Cashmere.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe we should look at our budgets in their discretionary and look at whether we can put funding together for a camera and work in with Community Patrol for them to work in with Alan and the other groups along the hill to see if we should actually do that. Because the fact of the matter is, council keeps saying no, the police can't. We may have a budget, so maybe we should investigate that, because at the moment it seems that this element are fully aware that the police are under pressure. Thank you.
Good point. Is there anybody else who would like to? Oh, Alan, do you want to reply to that? Alan McDonald?
Yes, sorry, it was just that unpause button. Look, that's a very generous offer, Tim. And yeah, as you quite rightly say, it is a pressure that is across the wider Port Hills. Maybe one thing I did forget to mention, I have talked to the police about having some police branded signage as opposed to the Community Patrol branded signage. There seems to be kind of a finger pointing between City Council and the police as regards the signs themselves. So, there are some police signs that say thieves are operating in this area, lock up your valuables, call 111 if you see somebody and there's a police logo at the bottom. When I've talked to the police now on multiple occasions, firstly, they denied even knowing about the signs. And secondly, they said they knew the signs but didn't have any. So in talking to Lee, this seems to be maybe a bit of a communication breakdown between the City Council and the police. So if there was some opportunity to get some signs that had a police brand on it, that might carry some more weight than the Community Patrol, but definitely would really appreciate any consideration for funds towards a camera. Thank you.
Okay. Who would like to say something next? Lee or Keir?
Carol, if I can, I might just, I don't know if there's a question, maybe it's more of a statement, but I'm just conscious that even the council's park team have seen the merits in CCTV or will be seeing the merits of them for Horswell Quarry. So I think it's something that I'd be pleased for the board to explore. It seems like Alan and the team have looked at the environment in terms of SIPTED, but I think it may still be good if we've got a staff resource to check the environment and see if there's any other improvements we can make. So that'd be my kind of two, I think, immediate cabs off the rank that I think I'd be keen to look at.
Didn't the police say to us the other day when we had the sergeant in talking to us, didn't he say that the police no longer supplied signs? I thought he specifically said that.
And that he said that, but they were also talking with council and Community Patrol. The three of them were talking together. So I'm not quite sure where that ended up. It just seems it's kind of a lot of things, as Alan's kind of I can kind of, there's a bit of frustration there, and we're frustrated as well. It seems to be going around in circles.
I know. I think we've got to get some advice, because we can't spend money without advice. But I think we have to make a step forward ourselves. Kia, member in the Cashmere area, do you want to say anything?
Oh, just to say, in a different capacity, I've recently been dealing with some sort of unsavoury activity in the day job that we've had to look at getting some. We've brought in CCTV, and I guess just to follow on from what Alan was saying, that it is one of those things that's a tool, but it's not a be all and end all. It's certainly good to be able to get some of that imagery, but exactly as you were saying, Alan, you need to have a pathway to use it. So I think, one of the big things is that it's kind of security is multi-layered, right? And we want to be able to kind of talk about what all those layers are. So, like that SEPTED stuff, all that stuff, I think, yeah, let's try and see what all the options are so we can try and get as much done as possible, because there unfortunately is no magic bullet, is there?
Kia, could you bring that experience of having brought in CTV in another area of your work? Would you be able to bring some expertise? No, I'm not saying expertise, I'm just saying experience to a discussion that we might have with staff on that issue?
Oh, totally happy. And I'm sure there's other people who've gone through similar processes on, work sites and stuff. It is kind of one of those sad facts of life, isn't it?
So you've brought in a CTV that actually would be good enough to identify number plates and things?
Yeah, and I'm sure staff will be able to provide advice on that as well. But yeah, happy to chat through some of that stuff, play offline. Best way to do it.
Yep. Okay, understand. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment? Have any of the staff got experience of any of these that have happened to in circumstances like this before? Okay. Amy and Joe, have you got a recommendation on this? I'm inclined to think that we would seek staff advice, which is what we normally say, but would be taking it urgent advice perhaps. Seek urgent advice from staff, given all the steps that this group have taken. I think we should put our shoulder to their shoulder to see if we can help and seek staff advice, particularly on the issue of CCTV, that would be good enough to identify the culprits, and B, on signage, which seem to be the two main issues that we should be addressing together with the Port Hills Trust Board. Is there anything else that I'm missing from this?
Carol, if I may, just if we have got staff resource, and I know it's finite, but just some SIPTED resource if we can. I know it sounds like Alan's done everything he can, but it's always good to have a third opinion. So
yeah, I would have thought that. Yes, it sounded to me as though Alan has done everything that you would do on a SIPTED issue, but nonetheless, you're dead right. We'll ask them as well. It just seems yeah. Go ahead.
Also, just to make sure that we are, what funds we could take from, if it's DRF or whatever it is. So just make sure that if we come up with a solution, a correct solution, because that to
help out. Yeah,
because I mean, to break the window from a parked car and a stolen parked car to try and get facial recognition, we do need some good advice on this.
Yeah, Alan, we've been discussing the wider area with the police and not with the police, amongst ourselves, including right through to the quarry, and we've also discussed it with Paul Devlin, the park ranger for the Port Hills, whom you will know, and we've been discussing it with him as well, because it seems to be everywhere, though your statistics were far worse than the statistics that we've had from elsewhere. But every day, every car park, especially around the Port Hills, is covered in broken glass. Amy, do you think I've addressed the issue appropriately in terms of the wording to allow us to get some urgent advice on this?
Yeah, yeah. So I can just read out the wording that I have here. So the first item was request staff advice on whether the council produces signage discouraging vehicle break-ins. So to get some clarity on who's responsible for that. Request staff advice on whether there is a staff resource to undertake a SIPTED assessment for the Mount Vernon Park car park. And then finally, to request staff advice on funding options for CCTV at the car park.
Yeah, and perhaps some staff advice on expertise on this area. I'm not sure we've got that within the staff, but to see if there is any expertise on CCTV, you know,
yeah, I think
all that.
Yeah, I think that can sort of be rolled
Inclusive.
into that.
Yeah. Can I just to put the discussion on the table, Alan, we're going to come back to you, which is unusual because I do want you to spend a minute or two telling me about the people in the committee and any issues that have arisen. But we can't spend too much more time on that. But I really want to be able to finish on that kind of note. So the resolution. So it's quite unusual the way we're doing this. Is there anything else that's left uncovered? Does the board think? Members think? Can I have a mover, please?
I'm happy to move.
You don't need a mover for this one.
Oh,
but
no,
just
I don't.
General agreement.
Yeah, general agreement. You're dead right. Sorry about that. You've heard the outline and you understand that that's only an outline and that we'll probably add some things. Do the staff think there's anything missing that we should be requesting? Okay. Do I have general agreement that we'll have that kind of resolution that we will, in terms of referring the matter for urgent advice? Can we add the word urgent, Amy?
Yep.
Thank you. Does everyone agree with the resolution as it's been outlined?
Yep.
Thank you. Coming back to you, Alan, just for 1 minute, can you tell us the people who are still, I'd be interested because I was the representative a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. Can you tell me the people who are active at the moment on the Port Hills Trust Board?
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. And firstly, just thank you all so much for your support and consideration and listening to our issue tonight. So you'll probably remember many of the faces.
Yeah.
So Oscar Alpers is the chair of our trustees.
Around?
He's very much still around.
That's so cool.
We have Bill Woods, who's also the chair of the Summit Road Society.
Yeah.
And similarly, Anne Kennedy, who's on the Summit Road Society. She's a bit of a legend on the Port Hills.
Yes,
Howard Keane was the previous chair of the management committee.
Is he still around too? That's great.
Yep. No, Howard stepped down, so I've stepped into his role.
Yeah.
Other members, we've got Derek Gain, who's quite active in the Hunsbury community.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have Lee on board pretty soon. We have David Jones, who's a recent addition. David runs a number of medical practices around town, so is quite good in bringing a kind of a business perspective, but also has linkages into the mountain biking community. We do actually have a good relationship with the single track club. And then I suppose we have a representation from Lincoln University. We have Dr. Tim Curran, who's the chair of the New Zealand Ecological Society. And then myself, my day job, I work for the Department of Conservation as the Principal Restoration Advisor. So we have, quite a broad breadth of representation. And so, that's just a few names. There are more. I suppose that gives you an idea of who's still there. As regards, you asked also for some projects. I suppose some of our more recent projects, we did purchase a block of land at the end of Albert Terrace, probably around 7 years ago, which originally was going to go into houses. And unfortunately for the builder, he went into liquidation when the ground had a designation of mass movement. So to put it into perspective, there's a lot of underrunners and fissures. When we received the land, there was around 4 meter high gorse. So we've controlled that all by hand and replaced it with around 6,000 native plants, which we're still planting. And that's all being planted by Cashmere High School students, the local scouts. We have an annual planting day, so there's a lot of community involvement in that. And also at the end of Albert Terrace, we just more recently bought a block of land that links, I suppose, the paper road from Hillsborough Terrace to Albert Terrace. And actually, we've got a meeting on site tomorrow to decide the future use of that land as well. So there are some of the members and then some of the more recent projects. And of course, we do have some quite good little shelters of both the dry bush track and the valley track and of course the sundial on the top of Coronation Hill, which is a definite feature for lots of people just to do kind of a short walk.
Was Oscar instrumental in getting that second piece of land, the one most recent?
Actually, he was, and we worked off Bill Woods' generosity. So he was the person who loaned the trust the money for that.
Yeah.
So we're just paying Bill back in that respect.
And I think Oscar's wife loaned the money for the first bit of land, unbeknown to her, probably.
Yeah, we won't go there.
That's gripping. I'm dying to ask you a question, for instance, about dark sky space on the Port Hills, which I raised several years ago, and would love to know if there was any ideas around the idea of a dark sky space on the Port Hills. But I won't do it today because we probably have to move on. We're very glad that you came, and thank you very much, Alan. I'm sorry that most of your conversation was about something that is distressing and irritating and at the same time. And we hope to get back to you very soon, and we'll of course involve you in any of the discussions that we have, and anybody else you want to have involved. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Carolyn, and also just thank you, Councillor Sampson, just for helping us get to this forum as well, just so we can tell you about our current situation. So thank you.
Okay, community board member, but that's all good.
Thank you very much. Helene, are you out there?
Okay.
Is out there. Yep.
Oh, good on you. Hello, Helene. How
Hello,
are you?
everyone.
Great. It's very, very good to see you, as energetic as always. And thank you very much for coming. And you're going to talk to us about the age-friendly committee again.
That's right. The transportation subcommittee.
Transportation, yeah.
Right.
Go for it.
Yes, okay, hello. Just I've been getting some messages on my screen saying that the connection is unstable. So if it doesn't work, we'll catch up and sort this out a little bit later, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Hopefully it will work. So first I'd like to thank the community board for the opportunity to speak today about some of the age-friendly transportation issues. And also I would like to thank the board for its support of the issues that we raised in our submission to you last June about seats at bus stops and rest seating along some routes to the bus stops. Just to let you know that the members of the Transportation Subcommittee are Jenny Goodman and David Troughton from the community, and Jay Seppi, who represents the community governance team. Today, I'd just like to give you, to present an overview of our transportation plan. The objective of our plan is that everyone in Spreydon-Cashmere over the age of 65 years has accessible and affordable transport options to enable their social and economic participation. Because basically we see it as unfair when people are excluded from participating in society as fully as they can or they wish to be, because they just might not fit into the current design of public transport services. And in that line, we take a broad view of transportation and see it more than just buses, that also consists of taxis, cars, walking, including safe footpaths and safe road crossings, cycling, and assisted transportation services. So the development of an age-friendly transportation plan by necessity is a community effort and requires joint discussions and consultation with different branches of local government, the community board, the city council, and Environment Canterbury. The following are some of the proposals that we have either submitted or discussed with Environment Canterbury. And I'll just go through them quickly without a fuller explanation, but I think you'd understand. The first one is to reinstate some bus routes that were eliminated in the 2012 review, particularly looking at routes to hospitals and amenities where older adults frequent. The second is to reinstate hill bus routes, which is an issue, a very particular issue for our ward, especially the Cashmere ward. Also to extend the Super Gold Card free travel times between 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Currently, it goes to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we would like the extra hour and a half added to that. We also spoke to ECAN about the possibility of reducing the minimum top-up amounts on bus cards. So this is not a change in fare amounts, but it simply makes it more affordable for older adults who often are on limited incomes to pay their bus fares. The following issues we have submitted to or discussed with the community board or with the city council. One, we would like older adults to be invited to and involved in strategic planning, because older adults know the critical issues and can suggest appropriate solutions. And sort of importantly, in the issues that I was able to successfully act on when I was on the board, they were issues that I learned about from attending the Older Adults Network. So the connection with the older adults is very important in understanding the situations. Secondly, to prioritize footpath upgrades, particularly around retirement communities, shopping areas, health offices, and local amenities that are used by older adults. Thirdly, that deep curb gutter channels are trip and fall hazards and should be replaced. So we're suggesting that as these areas come up for redevelopment, that they are replaced. It's not just the roading is replaced, but the deep curb gutter channels. Also to support age-concerned transportation programs, such as Staying Safe driving courses, Life Without a Car, and the Total Mobility Scheme. Bells on cycles and scooters would be helpful for the safety of the rider and for the public to have those bells. We'd like to continue looking at installing seating by bus stops and rest seating areas along walking routes to bus stops. And we would also advocate for native trees being planted by bus stops for shade and just a general improvement in our urban environment, but to choose trees that do not heavily drop their leaves. And to finish, there are two issues that we've had some initial discussions with Environment Canterbury. And they are, one, having bus routes that go across the suburbs. So residents in Spreydon and Cashmere wards can then take direct routes to amenities located in the south of the city. Examples being St. Martin's Supermarket and the Tannery. The second issue we have had some initial talks to Environment Canterbury, is their My Way program, which is it was trialed in Timaru as a program to provide easy public transport to older adults. And we have suggested to them that should they expand the trialing, that we would like to be, that our ward, it'd be good to be considered in one of those trials. So that's about all. That's what we've been up to. And it's our ongoing plan. And that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions or comments.
That's a heck of a lot. We've been discussing some of these issues this week on the board, particularly, for instance, footpaths, which we've raised consistently for quite a while now. And the deep dirt, it will break your heart to find out, Elaine, and I think this is right, that if the program on deep ditch gutters had continued every year as it was going before the earthquakes, it would have concluded end of last year.
Well,
I know. It's
another victim of the earthquakes.
I live on a deep ditch street, and it's so dangerous for older adults.
Yeah.
And some of the other issues, like for instance, I would reinstating hill routes. We've supported that, but also we're very concerned about the lack of routes in Summerfield and Spreydon. And we also, I personally believe we should be trialling 5 years of free transport right throughout the country, but that would take a very strong government action to do that. And much of the rest we would agree with. I think I'm going to ask Amy for advice on this, but I'm pretty sure now that the council's not making a submission, which means that we can't. Am I right, Amy?
Yeah. At this stage, the council isn't making a submission on ECAN's upcoming annual plan. But that's not to say that the age-friendly committee itself couldn't make a submission. But unfortunately,
Or as individuals make
As,
it?
yes,
as
as
individual.
individuals,
Yeah.
as non-board members, you could also make submissions.
I actually am going to make a submission myself because some of these issues are right at my heart. And I'm just going to ask Amy if she could advise the board by email, if that's okay, how an individual could make a submission on an issue in the ECAN plan, if we could, if we were so inclined. Questions. People who would like to ask Helene some questions.
So Kia, Tim,
comment.
Kia and
No,
Tim
go
and
ahead.
Callum. Tim and Callum and Lee have their hands up.
Okay, who was first? Was it Kia?
Oh, and Kia. Sorry, you put your hand down so quickly.
Yeah, Kia. Kia, this time you go first. Tim, I'm going to put you last for a change.
Yeah, I guess just echoing what Carolyn said. It's a huge amount of work, and it's really great to see. I guess I'm kind of curious about that. And unfortunately, it's one of those things which is an ECAN decision, not something that we can directly make. But around the looking at the Super Gold Card and fairs and what could be done there. I know there's been a lot of chatter about tertiary students and things like that. Have you had much of a bite from the regional council around looking at that option?
Yes, actually we did. I had made a presentation back in October at the Council's Urban Design Team Seminar for Age Friendly of Otahu, and Vicky Southwark, the councillor from ECAN, approached me at that time. That she supported it, and we had a meeting of our committee along with Councillor Phil Clearwater to talk about that. So there wasn't any opposition to it, and that's one of the issues that we would like to now in the new year contact them again and see what we can do to to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely think I'd be really supportive of this. And I mean, I know, I guess it is an ECAN thing, and they'll have to find space in their budgets for it. And it's easy for me to say because I don't have to fund it, but it seems like a really good, great way to keep people active and mobile in the community.
Yes, it also the more people who go on buses, that we get, going on buses, the fewer cars, we're going to have going into the city. And this will allow, so many older people to get into town and spend money, really. To go to cafes, and there's great interest to build up the economy of the city, of the central city, and the best way to do it is to bring in people.
Yeah, thank you on that, Callum.
Yeah, just wanted to sort of express my support for everything you've said here. I think this is a really good example of why talking to people on the ground who are using these services is so important. Like the details often that really matter. Little things like the top-up limits make huge differences, and they're not the kind of things that often get noticed at sort of big strategic meetings. So I'd obviously you don't need any encouragement from me to keep doing what you're doing, but I would definitely support older adults being invited to and involved in strategic planning in particular. Just wanted to chuck my 2 cents in there.
Thank you.
Tim.
She leaves first because you said I was going to go last.
No, you definitely had your hand up first, so now you go for it.
Helene,
carry on, Tim.
With this, you're right with regards to the suburbs, because I know definitely with Cashmere and Spreydon, etc., we suddenly had better service than we did before, and then suddenly it was taken away. And with regards to, have you talked to ECAN about making sure that you guys are going to be included in any discussions? Because I know that when they came up with this wonderful hubs and spokes, they actually forgot, it seemed, to consult with the key users, which were older adults and students, and then those that they did, it seemed they didn't listen. So have you talked to them about that?
Yes, I'm in contact with a woman named Ross Service, who's the community engagement, officer there. And in fact, in the next week or so, I'm registered for some sort of course or meeting, talking about fares for the, bus fares for the elderly. So I'm still involved. They're keeping me on their email list, and they're advising me of what's going on. And they've been very welcoming when we've suggested having meetings together to discuss these issues.
Great. And with regards to the fares, when there has been comment with regards to dropping a fare to just one price, because I know when I was in Melbourne, the central city was free. You just jump on and jump off. But outside that, it was one price and you just paid, so they said that, or my understanding was that patronage had gone up. Obviously, it'd be people using the central city because they just jump on and jump off because it's free. But on the suburbs, there's no jiggling around for money, and the cards that they use, or the travel cards, it's just one price. What are your thoughts on that? Or would you bring that up with
well, I haven't actually thought a lot about fares and the fare schedules, for different distances or different, ages of people. I've been just looking at the gold card, but I will be going to this workshop on fares shortly, so I'll be far better informed, the next week or two than I am right now about that.
Right, thank you.
That sounds really interesting, Tim. As a fare structure, that sounds really interesting.
The thing is, you've got to take a risk at the start because it's about a numbers thing. So if you've got a bus that's, say, 30% full, is that a success? It's probably not. But if you've got to drop the fare, but you triple the patronage, technically you're doing better. And it's not just about the patronage, it's about the environment, both the city environment with fewer cars, but reintroducing people to that form of travel. Because when ECAN changed the hubs and spokes, and as I said, the two areas the two groups that were not really consulted were the older and the younger. And I've been going around talking to my kids' friends, and they're on their late teens, early 20s, and they won't touch a bus because the way they felt they were treated, and that's a real shame. So
you're right. The buses used to be where Christ College and Aranui met, and they used to use it. I heard, Helene, that there was a proposal from ECAN to have free fares for students. Is that right?
That I'm not aware of. I received an email a couple of months ago about a group that was advocating for that, but that was just a private group or a community group. I haven't heard anything from ECAN.
Yeah, I'd be a bit snotty about it myself, only because the equally low-paid other young people would find it just as difficult to get around as university students. But I won't go off task. Elaine,
I'll quickly interject.
Oh yes, sorry, Lee.
Sorry, and I will not repeat what my colleagues have said because I think we've summarised it really well. But just saying, I wholeheartedly support everything that Helene has raised today. I just wanted to double check how we can help Helene. It's probably disappointing to some degree that we're not submitting on ECAN's annual plan or long-term plan. But I suppose that's the great thing about age-friendly Spreydon-Cashmere, because it is arm's length. Can I just clarify that does mean that you're still going to submit directly, Helene?
Yes, we did last year. We submitted both the council long-term plan and to the ECAN long-term plan, and we will continue to do that and send things to the community board where appropriate.
Great. Okay. Well, if certainly speaking from a personal perspective, if you're going to talk to your submission, I'm sure we can all just hang around in the background and offer some support anyway, even just turning up to also hear your submission. So we obviously support everything you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Helene, I'm going to try and submit on this and put in my 2 bobs worth. Thank you very much for continuing and persisting with Age Friendly, for being so effective and doing the hard work like you always have done. And there's some things here where I would I'd prioritise Spreydon and Summerfield over the hills, but I'm all in favour of the hill routes, and I would be going for that idea of Melbourne. I thought was fascinating,
Yeah.
and I'd probably and I agree with, of course, the native trees around the bus stops. I think you could informally say directly when you speak to your submission that you've been to the community board, Spreydon-Cashmere Community Board, and though protocol does not allow us to make a submission, you can say to them the board expressed its keenness and support of our proposals, and that if the board had had the ability to submit, it would have done in favour of your proposals.
Okay. Well,
if you'd like to phrase it that way.
Thank you that way. And I'm also ready to include, Carolyn, I'm also ready to include Spreydon and Summerfield and any other places that you think could benefit from improvements in the bus routes.
Personally, I'd love to
catch just the hills.
Yeah, it's just not, I just don't have the ability to catch the bus because of the length of time I'd have to walk and to catch the bus, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But thank you very much for persisting, Helene, and it's been a pleasure to hear from you again.
Thank you. It was nice to see everyone again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There are no, the suggested word, the suggested wording from Amy, as you can see, is whether the council can make a submission, and we've since found out that we can't. Deputations, there are no deputations. Presentation of petitions, none. So our next one is erosion and sediment control, monitoring and enforcement, and we've got the paper as well, and on that issue. And oh no, we haven't. It's the erosion and sediment control that we've got is the submission by the River Network. My apologies on that. Clive Appleton.
Sorry, it is an information report from Clive.
Yeah.
Yep. So Clive is here to speak to that if you'd like.
Yeah. Are you there, Clive?
Yes, kia ora.
Oh, sorry. That was a deadly silence. You're very welcome, Clive, and we're very glad to have you here to talk about it.
Yes, well, I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can.
Good. So I'm going to share a screen. Is that okay?
Yes, we look forward to it.
Okay. Hopefully the technology will work here.
If you have any trouble, Clive, I can share it from my end. Oh no, there you go.
All right. I've got the wrong one. I've given you the wrong one.
Oh.
Now, how do I get out of that?
You can. So there should be a little button at the top that says "Stop Sharing."
Dear.
So do you see that?
Ah, yes. Stop share. And I'll try again. Get the right one. Nope, still not doing it. Why is it not doing it? Ah, I know why. Now can you see that one?
And we've gone into the next page, but we did, yeah, we can see it.
You're not showing the PowerPoint anymore. You're showing your Zoom screen.
Oh dear, can you sort me out there? Are you able to show that one?
Do you want me to share the PowerPoint that you sent through to me?
Yes, please.
Yep.
It's probably the best thing.
Let me do that.
This is the second time. I'm sorry, folks. I've tried to share something.
Let's see.
You're probably 100
So
years.
I'll start talking. Yes, I am the Healthy Waterways Implementation Lead. I'm responsible or accountable for the Council's delivery and keeping to the Comprehensive Stormwater Network Discharge Consent, which was granted to us in December 2019. So if you go to the second slide, please. Great. So the CSNDC stands for the Comprehensive Stormwater Network Discharge Consent that we have granted by ECAN. Under that consent, there is a requirement for council to put together a sediment discharge management plan. Sediment is one of the key contaminants of our waterways, along with copper and zinc. And sediment is, as you all know, a major problem across the whole of the city, but even more so on the Port Hills, where we have the less highly erodible soils. Under that discharge management plan, we have drafted a plan and we submitted that to ECAN in December just over 12 months ago. It is a draft document and it meets legislative requirements. The reason that it is a draft at the moment is because we're currently, as you know, reviewing 2 water bylaws. One of them, the draft stormwater and land drainage bylaw, which has been out for public consultation and will go through hearings later this month. That the stormwater and land drainage bylaw also deals with the sediment erosion control requirements that we need to be undertaken across the city. And once that bylaw becomes operable in July, hopefully of this year, we'll be able to update and finalize the sediment discharge management plan. So what does that plan do? It directs a range of work that council undertakes. One of the things that's been happening is that when building and resource consents are lodged to council, they have to have an erosion sediment control plan with that application. The erosion sediment control plans are vetted by qualified staff, engineers, people that have had training on how to manage erosion and sediment on building and construction sites. And if those plans are deemed to be up to standard and will work, then the consents will be granted. Effectively, from all construction sites, development sites, there should be no stormwater coming off there that is milky. It has to be clear. Anything that is dirty will have sediment in it and will be a problem to neighbouring landowners, which includes ourselves, where we have our stormwater networks. We don't want to receive sediment in our stormwater drains, pipes, etc., because it just clogs it up and it's a maintenance issue. And ultimately ends up all in our waterways, which we don't want. We want to cut that back. So we also have, to help us manage and police issues to do with sediment, you often will see sediment or stones, material like that, tracked onto roads from trucks and other vehicles that have come off building construction sites. Our building inspectors and enforcement staff can go out there and request that material to be cleaned up by the developers. If they don't, then we will actually get a sweeper truck in and we'll charge them for that. So the traffic bylaw helps under that particular area where we have problems with sediment. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Oops. Okay. So the monitoring and enforcement side of it, all our building and resource consent managers, including our subdivision engineers, have all gone through erosion sediment control workshops that were 2-day workshops held by ECAN. So they know about the Canterbury Regional Council erosion sediment control toolbox, how sediment and erosion needs to be controlled on all construction sites. So they're all qualified and know what's required. Before any earthworks happen, the erosion sediment control plan obviously needs to be inspected, and the measures that are on that plan need to be put out across the development site and they're inspected to make sure that they're up to what's required in the plan and that they'll be operable. Once that's been signed off as being okay, then site works can start. Every time an inspector goes out to a building or construction site during routine and site inspections to make sure, you know, obviously the concrete foundations are right, or the walls and the roofs are up to building code standards, etc. Every time they go out for a site inspection, they also inspect the erosion sediment control measures that are still in place and that they will work to stop any loss of sediment. If those erosion sediment control measures are inadequate or have been damaged, then the building site manager will be asked to fix that. If it's of a significant issue, then they may fail their inspection just on that, and there'll be a notice to fix, and it may require a re-inspection in order to sign it off. And to the inspector's discretion, it may incur another inspection fee. At the same time, we're in the infancy of setting up forecasts for major intense rainfall events. In our sediment discharge management plan that we have set out the different types of rainfall events, intensities that are of concern to exposed soil construction sites. And we have now a meteorological forecasting that consists of emails that go out to our inspectors, resource consent people, and our subdivision engineers, typically about 2 days before the forecasted rain is going to come. It gives time for our staff to go out, talk to developers, site managers, warning them that they need to ensure that their erosion sediment control fences, other measures are in place in the event of this rainfall happening. If we have a storm of the intensities that we are concerned about, we will get information from the network of rainfall stations across the city and Banks Peninsula. We'll actually have mapped where those rainfall events of the type that we're concerned about have actually occurred, so that our staff can go out there and actually check whether those sites release sediment or actually manage to stop sediment from coming off those sites. So it's a follow-up monitoring and checking that everything is been performing as we expect it. So the problem is, though, is that, and this is where I've been asked to write and respond in a memo to the council, the Three Waters and Infrastructure Committee, about how we can enhance the erosion sediment control monitoring enforcement and what it will cost. This is a memo that I'm in the final stages of looking at the financial implications of getting more staff to be able to go out and inspect sites. We need 2 additional staff to do this, who are dedicated, solely dedicated to focusing on monitoring and enforcing sediment and erosion issues on our construction sites, simply because our existing staff are so overstretched. They can go out during their routine work and keep an eye out for erosion sediment control issues during storm events, but they haven't got the time to be dedicated to go and look at the high risk sites that we're really concerned about. So we do need additional staff to do this work. Obviously, when it's not raining, it'll be working with industry to educate them more about that there is a real need to control sediment loss off construction sites. We know that the industry, through our building inspectors and through ECAN officers, there's still a lot of work to be done with the industry to keep them aware and compliant with sediment issues. So there's still need for ECAN and ourselves to run industry workshops on this. We also obviously receive from time to time complaints sent in by the public, and we will investigate those. And if we are able to determine where the sediment has come from, whether it's a building site or general earthworks, then our building inspectors, for instance, may actually end up charging the culprit an inspection fee, and it may result in a notice to fix if it's to do with a building site. And finally, obviously ECAN deals with discharges from ECAN consented earthwork sites, and also helps us where the source of contamination is unknown. Often we get calls from the public seeing sediment discharged from pipes, outfall pipes, straight into our waterways, and it's very difficult at times to be able to trace where that's coming from, but ECAN help us on those approaches. So this whole process with building inspectors, etc., has been happening for over 12 months now. And obviously we're in the phases of trying to perfect it and improve it. There's still a lot of work to be done in this space. So thank you.
Thank you, Clive. It's a very difficult subject, and our board over the years will have seen the consequences of erosion and sediment in our rivers and creeks, especially the Cashmere stream, for example. And we do know it's a very difficult issue to fix, and we're glad that there's new work being done in this area. We wish that the ability to control the developers, etc., was at a higher level, and we understand the difficulties you've got in terms of staffing. Are there any questions, please?
Yep.
Carolyn?
Yes, can I have some order? Hang on a minute. Amy, did you notice any order?
Oh, I think it was Callum, Lee, and then Tim.
Callum can go first, then Lee, then Tim. Go ahead, Callum.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Clive. So you talked about the inspectors going to check out mitigation measures. Do those inspectors also, do you also deploy inspectors to investigate actual discharge? So are they going to site just to look at the setup they've got in place to check that's all good, or are they actually going around and regularly actually inspecting waterways as well?
So they don't inspect waterways, but they do deal with, if they're driving through a new subdivision or any earthworks that, it's not part of their itinerary for the day of doing, going to those sites to do routine building inspections. If they pick up on something else and they see it, then they will deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. My other question sort of following from that was, when it comes to the plans that the sediment, the management plans that are drawn up, or I'm guessing based on the consent conditions from ECAN, are there hard thresholds in terms of discharge levels that are kind of measurable, or is it just always, is it kind of based on a, that looks cloudy kind of measurement?
Yeah, good question. So there's to be no discharge more than 50 milligrams per litre. Effectively, when you get to that level or more, then the water starts to look cloudy. So we basically to make it really easy for everybody in the industry and what have you. If they know that they've got cloudy water, they're breaching the discharge of sediment levels permitted off sites.
Yep. Cool. Sorry if I can just take a bit of a indulgence here. So I think from my knowledge, the issue with monitoring conditions by things like the milligrams per litre is that it does require either someone to, I guess, as you say, look at the water, and if you've got, you know, like a storm happening overnight, often there might not be people on site, and even then, in order to get an accurate measurement that's objective, you need to have a laboratory test. So it's quite hard, I think, with those kind of measures for a developer to be anything but reactive. And I guess, yeah, that's I just kind of wanted to raise that point, and wondering whether in these kind of sediment discharge plans we can look at more active monitoring or monitoring of things that can be done with field testing. I just think that could be something that could actually make things easier both for the council and for developers to allow more proactive responses to, say, rainfall events, things like that.
So you're right. Anything that's over 50 milligrams per litre is cloudy water. You'd have to test for it if you wanted to know how concentrated it was. So effectively, that's why we said 50 milligrams is the highest. And if you got that or higher, then your water is not clear. So you're allowed to discharge clear water, but nothing, that's cloudy or more. And we do require, under those erosion sediment control plans, that they regularly inspect the structures that they have in place, and they shouldn't be releasing any water that's dirty off the site.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Who was it? Lee?
Yeah. Hi, Clive. Thanks for your time this evening. Really positive that we're getting a more prescriptive bylaw in place operative from this July, so that's great. I suppose a couple of things. I think historically there's obviously been some problems in terms of main responsibilities. So I think it's great. Secondly, that it seems that that's a lot more defined. I think some of my so in terms of you're producing a memo at the moment to look at some more resource to staff members. I suppose is two enough is probably my main question. The context and maybe looking at this behind is obviously we're going through some RMA changes as well that may lead to more development on the hills. So there's that aspect, and we also know that when you work, is there also any identification of sensitive soils as well? Is any work going on in that capacity? Because we know, as you mentioned early, the lost material, you cut into it and it bleeds. It's really hard once you've touched it. So is there any mapping to be done in that capacity? Because obviously risk profiles are very different across the city.
Good question. We did investigate looking at soil profiles and came to the very quick conclusion that would be very difficult. So in the sediment discharge management plan, we set up a matrix looking at if a given site was on it's based on slope, how erodible the soils are, and how close it is to waterways, or to a network where the sediment could be washed down into our stormwater system. And so that's how we, and of course the size of the site as well. So we restrict the size of the area that can be uncovered on very steep slopes, like on the Port Hills. I think it's down to 1 hectare as opposed to 10 hectares on the flat. Okay. Now, the other thing is you mentioned about the legislation that will replace the RMA. I'm hoping that that will, and it probably, from me personally, I think it should not permit new major subdivisions on hill slopes where there is highly erodible soils, because when you have major storm events like we had about 3 weeks ago, You can have all the mitigation measures in place, including basins, first flush basins to hold sediment and prevent it from going over into waterways. When you have major storm events, all that gets overwhelmed and you lose it. It really is the horse is bolted. The best thing would be that the legislation either significantly restricts the amount of development that can be possible to almost, to the very minimum compared to what we have today. It really does have to. I'm hoping that will come in play nationally. It will, because what we're suffering is only typical of what's going on right around the country. And plus, we need to probably look closely at what we permit within our district plan rules as well about the amount of land that can be cleared. Yeah, so it's a holistic approach that needs to be taken to stop, the enormity of the issue in the first place.
I completely agree. If I can just carry on slightly. So there's the council is going through a process at the moment in terms of the RMA, looking at the qualifying matters, just in terms of what exclusions might be. So are you feeding into that process, Clive, or are you relying on a national framework to come in place to protect that?
I'm relying on a national framework. Yeah.
Okay, and just sorry, I've got one more issue, and it's just I just don't feel that an extra building inspection is, because we're only talking a couple $100. I just don't think that's in any capacity grunty enough or has a big enough teeth. I think we need to take more of an education route with developers, builders. Most of them are all licensed building practitioners and need to go through training, regular training. We're talking quarterly. So we really need to educate builders, and I don't think the fine framework that you're looking at or additional inspections is just going to do anything. I think it's just not going to be, it's just not going to have the teeth we need it to. So I mean, and that could really, if we could look at some proper fine or recompense for indiscretions, we can help support your 2 staff members. So I think we really need to look at this in a lot more depth.
I agree. Unfortunately, the bylaws don't give us the teeth that we would really like, in the sense that you can take someone to court and charge them up to $12,000. There has to be a fairly significant event. Charging them maybe just for an inspection fee is just an annoyance. A notice of fix and stop no further development would certainly hurt some of them. But I totally agree. It needs a multi-approach. This is why if we get 2 additional staff, they'll be dedicated to storm events, but also doing the education with the industry outside of that time. Yeah, it needs a multi-approach.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to state in terms of your memo, education as well. So thank you. I've taken enough of your time. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you,
You're
Lee.
welcome.
I think we were reaching.
If I can.
Yeah, I know. I think we were reaching a little bit too far there in terms of what was possible. Go ahead, Tim.
Just Clive, did ECAN used to do this and now we do it, or was it always going to be our responsibility?
It was ECAN's before we got the global consent. It's become a responsibility to us because of the rules within our consent. Yeah.
Because my understanding is that ECAN never actually did this, a lot like the odour and things like that. Would that be correct? I'm just...
they did a certain amount of it, but the consent has basically, they have to deal with either sites that are consented through with them, or if there are direct discharges from sites straight into waterways, they can deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And following on from Lee, I think that you should talk to the team with regards to qualifying matters, because I don't think, that we shouldn't rely on luck. I mean, the NPSUD is just an absolute mire, you know, and we've really got to be on it. So I think that it would be really good to talk with that team and with David Faulkner, etc., because you know, we've got some real issues coming towards us, and I think this, I mean, we don't need this to be another one. So I think you'll need just the support, overall support, because the building, as I understand it, the building consents and planning are really under pressure with staff. So the two staff that you're talking about, have they been employed, or are they building inspectors that are going to transfer across to specialise in this? Or because at the moment I thought that it was just building inspectors doing this at the moment as part of their inspections.
So it's our resource consent people that are doing it, our subdivision engineers and the building inspectors. We do not have these two new staff. I need to be able to find a funding source for that. They need to be part of the building consents area, because if we, Three Waters gets cleaved off from into its own authority, then the building inspectors still need to carry on this work as a whole. And yeah, so that's the challenge. They will need to be based in the building and consents area.
Because to date, the building consents and the planning is actually self-funding. So that has to be, you know, I'm not quite sure how that will be put in, like you say, but it's following again from Lee, you know, like there has to be some kind of cost there that is, so there's respect for it. Yeah, and whether it's, I mean, the idea is not to fine people because you want them trained, as Lee said. You want to get their training and the builders, you know, up to speed in their responsibilities, because the ideal is when our guys inspect it, it's all perfect. I mean, and storm events happen and these things happen, but to try and do it as best we can. So it's a really tricky one, Clive, but it's absolutely essential. But I do think you need to get into with the qualifying matters with David Faulkner and just make them aware of what's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Thank you. I've got nothing. That's it. Thanks.
I think we've probably only touched the sides on this one because we haven't gone anywhere near zinc and copper as well. And certainly the amount of housing that's being built between my house in Spreydon and Horsewell Quarry, and the huge number of developments on land that's waterlogged along Sparks Road means that this issue is only going to get worse, especially with climate change. And I do sympathise with the dilemmas that you find yourself in. I'd like to see greater reinforcement, and I'd like to see greater punishment as well, because we're not going to get through this by being Weasley with the developers who ignore the principles and the behaviours that they should adopt. Thank you very much. I think this is just the beginning of what we're probably going to hear from you, and I hope that in the next year that we hear back from you to see how progress is, particularly on the employment of specialists, and to see if our board can press on this issue, because I think our wards, both our wards, are more affected than many other wards in terms of runoff. So thank you very much, Clive. There's more to discuss, but we haven't got time tonight. But thank you very much for the effort and coming in to see us.
Okay.
Thanks, Clive.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Okay, members' exchanges now, I think. Is that right?
Oh, Carolyn, would you like to just have a mover and a seconder just to receive that information report?
Yeah. I'm not sure, is there anything that you could see us adding to this? I've just been reading the Waihoro-Heathcote River Network's paper on a submission on water supply, wastewater and stormwater bylaws, and there's nothing being done about zinc and copper. I don't want to introduce that topic right now, but I'm just saying we're not at the end of this. Is there any further action?
I think with regards to what Clive's doing, I think we sit back and just see where he's going with this, because this is all new, and it's as you know, it's just a huge kind of thing to start. So I think we need to see where it's going to settle. And with the copper and zinc, that's actually it needs to be a national policy with regards to that. So
Yeah, and if you were going to allocate funding to it, it might, I don't think that specific issue might come to council, but it's certainly something that you and Mel can think about as councillors and have got some input on. Okay,
we'll take it off another board.
Yeah, and that's something that you could also think about in your annual plan submission, is just flagging that as whether it's, you know, in the annual plan or in the next LTP, supporting that funding for those additional staff.
You're not wrong.
I think would be more appropriate is to work out how it can be funded through the as the rest of the building consents and the resource consents are through the developers, because we should also reward or at least, you know, wave the flag for those developers, etc., that do it well, because I don't think we do enough of that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think and your idea about that, both of those ideas were valid. I think you're right. So can we have a mover on, what am I moving actually?
It's just to receive the report.
Yes, okay.
So no decision.
Yeah, move to receive the report. I'd just like to say I'm glad these subjects are not, I sometimes seem to be incredibly boring, and for our wards, there wouldn't be a more important environmental issue than what Clive was talking about. So I move. Can I have a mover and a seconder for receiving the report, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Callum. Seconded.
Tim is putting his hand up.
Good, Tim. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. Information exchange. Who can start? Tim, can you start?
I've got nothing new to add with regards to it. Yeah. So, because we talked about a lot of things the other day.
Yeah, we did. Callum.
So I got contacted by an Eddington resident who lives near what's the name of that street? The one at the back of Eddington that's all broken up. On the other side of Lincoln Road.
Bernard?
Yeah, that's right, Bernard Street. Yeah. And I asked her to get in touch with you, Amy. I'm not sure if she has. It was Yeah. So she is a single. Well, no, she's not a single mom. She's a sort of raising a kid at home, and she had this idea for a bridge across the railway between the back end of Eddington and Hagley Park. And she found a spot on Google Maps, which is actually, like, looking at it, I'd obviously need someone expert to have a look at it too, but looking at it at face value, it looks like a really, really good idea for improving pedestrian access to shops, to the park, and skipping having to cross a really busy Lincoln Road, especially given that it's likely to get a third lane put through it soon. So yeah, I mean, I just encouraged her to get in touch and come to a board meeting. But Amy, did she indicate that she was keen to come?
She just got in touch, and I just got back to her with dates of a few upcoming meetings, but I haven't heard back from her. But yeah, she did sound like she was quite keen to come along.
Doesn't that sound fun?
We have real problems with Kiwi Rail with regards to just getting access to crossings to do them up. So right, they're like 1950s. It's just insane. So it would be. I think it would be difficult as well. But what fun! I've got a feeling that Bernard Street is a private street. Now, I've always been interested in that street because I think it's private. Because someone asked for it to be upgraded and cleaned up a bit, and the council proudly said it's not us.
Oh, okay. That's the street where the new laundry is gone, right?
I don't know. It goes into the Court Theatre.
Yeah.
I think that might have been a different section of one of the streets around there that's privately owned.
Anyway, we won't argue that, but we could actually find out. But somebody told me that. Who did I say next? Kier.
What did I have? I just wanted to say that a general notice, which is I saw that the councillors cancelled their library fines. which has helpfully saved me $50 that I'd been planning to give back to them, but now I don't have to. So I'd just like to thank Councillors Coker and Scandra.
We expect you to give that $50 to charity.
I totally think you should give it to council anyway with goodwill, Kia.
Yeah, totally.
Do the kids still retrospective fines as well, or is it?
I had $27 fines at Spreydon Library the other day, and she said, "Shut up for one more day because then tomorrow you don't pay." So I did.
We probably shouldn't be saying this while we're being recorded. We sound.
There's a clear complex here.
Oh, the only other thing is obviously the annual plan.
Lee.
The only thing I'll touch on is just I went to Crest last Thursday. So Crest is the local civil defence hub. They're trucking along. They've recently, or before Christmas, they got some funds from Rotary, which was gratefully received. So they've brought, food, provisions, lights, first aid kits and that. So it's trucking along nicely. Just looking at a water tank at the moment to connect up to the church. So yeah, and Pam Clearwater went to a civil defence, a council civil defence workshop on Saturday. So we're hoping that she survived. She was just going to see if we could wean some stuff from what council's doing as well. So yeah, it's trucking along reasonably well, to be honest. So I'll keep my watching brief on that and help where I can.
Anybody? Sorry, Mel.
I know Pam survived because I saw her and Phil in the car during the week as we drove past each other. So she's alive. I went to the ANA Addington Neighbourhood Association meeting last Wednesday night. I didn't stay for the whole time, but the largest discussion that they were doing was around their policy for donations. Basically, they're wanting to, I can't remember if Callum talked about it, but they're talking about giving a few $100s away basically every year to a deserving group, charity, possibly individuals, and they're coming up with a policy for that and talking about giving some to Addington School. So that was really good. There was the sunflower competition, which I went to the wrong location for on Sunday, the 20th of February. Went to the wrong park, and I wasn't going to drag Adeline any further. But I think that went really well according to the Facebook post. So that's really good that Ruth has been doing that. And about the private street, it's Walsall Street, that's a private street which adjoins Bernard Street. So they meet each other at 90-degree angle there at the back. And then the other thing that's been happening that Carolyn went to was the hearings on Lincoln Road, which is still in its process. But yeah, there's been a lot of submissions, which I believe are public, and there's been a lot of submissions from businesses, actually, along all its length, who all had very firm ideas about what they wanted and how things should be changed to suit them. So I won't say any more about that, but it's very, very interesting, and yeah, we'll be doing it. There's a site visit happening next Monday, and then we're doing further deliberations after that. Yeah.
So you cut it there for a second, Mel, at least for me. What was that in reference to? Which area?
It's Lincoln Road, so it's the
right.
the bus transport lanes from Curlitz all the way down to Whiteley. But it's there's three different business interests between Curlitz and Wrights Road.
Cool.
Nothing, just a small personal note. I've withdrawn from the JP service because I've got comorbidities in terms of COVID, and so I'm hunkering down a little bit and probably won't attend any face-to-face meetings over the next couple of months because the doctors told me that I'm actually vulnerable especially in terms of missing half a lung and stuff. and wouldn't be able to sustain an infection if I got it. So I'm just going to hunker down, but that won't stop me from doing the work because it's all Zoom anyway. Does anybody else want to comment about anything else in terms of COVID? Okay. Kier, unless anybody's got anything else to say, Kier, would you like to come up with one of your brilliant
Sure thing.
Kiers?
Sure thing. I got boosted today. Excellent service at the Beckenham Pharmacy. Over and done. I don't particularly like needles, but it was over and done with before I even knew what was happening. So that was perfect. So Hardings, recommend them if you want a quick jab. Tikuna te wairua. Tikuna te wairua kia rere ki te taumata. Ko te matatika te matapono he arahi ina mahi. Ko aratahi te tira kia eke panuku. Kia eke tangaroa. Haumie hui e taiki.
Fantastic, Kia, fantastic. Good to see everybody. Amy and Joe, I won't be available tomorrow for anything. If there's a major issue and the bomb goes off, could you just contact Lee and ask him to solve it?
Yeah, will do. I'm sure everything will go smoothly.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.